Hello and good evening, good morning, depending on where you're at and what side of the world that you are on. This is episode 24, if you can believe it, of Terrorific Talk. We are already now almost at 25 episodes in. Crazy to think about. And tonight with me, I have VampireToy and SilverTrigger, who are going to talk with me tonight about horror and vampires. So good evening and good morning to you. How are you two doing?
Hello. Doing good. How about you guys?
I am grand. Had a nice lunch, and I'm ready to talk your ears off.
And I am fabulous as well. Once again, thank you two for coming on. VampireToy, I know you're in the process of, well, you have moved, but getting all that stuff done, so I know how busy that can get. And Silver, I know you had to wake up from a nap, probably, but nevertheless, I appreciate you two coming on.
Not a problem.
All right, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it and get to talking about vampires. They have to be one of my favorite supernatural creatures besides werewolves. And I can't say enough good thing about vampires, and I could probably just like babble on, and I probably will. But let me go ahead and get started with the first question here. So, whenever you think about vampires, whether you're a vampire in a game, whether you're watching a vampire movie, whether you see a vampire show, what do you feel whenever you think of the word vampire? What do you feel defines a vampire? So, like, what is the quintessential vampire to you?
I would say I'd feel like they are like the next stage of evolution. Because they are superior to humans in almost every way. You know, sharper senses, a body that can take a beating, despite their hunger for blood. Even though they have their weaknesses, like sunlight, but it really depends on the mythos that they're based in, like the universe, as well. Let's see.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me personally, what defines a vampire in my book is a creature basically that feeds on a form of life force. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood, just any type of energy that can be considered that life essence, right? And that's kind of what I think about when I think of vampires. So we have so many different types, beautiful and grotesque, different, forms of vampires. But I think at the very heart of the definition, it is, like Silver was mentioning, the evolution of a creature that is a little bit, looks like us, but more evolved than us, but has adapted to take the life energy from humans in some form.
That's definitely a good way of looking at it, the next stage of human evolution. So, in media, what do you think about this trend that's been going on for a little while about, like, the sexy vampire? I mean, I guess depending on the kind of mythos, as you two were talking about that you believe in, sexy vampires may be like, oh, you're fine, or maybe they piss you off. So just what are your thoughts about this new trend of, like, the sexy vampire?
I'm not really a huge fan of sexy vampires in general. I mean, sure, they're more appealing than, say, like Nosferatu and a regular Dracula. That can be hideous. But, yeah, not really a fan of them. Because, sure, they can be seductive and can easily persuade humans to do their bidding. But overall, I guess they could be quite deceptive. Because it really depends on their powers that they might possess. But, yeah, I'm not really a fan.
And VampireToy, what's your take on the trend of the sexy vampire?
I think It is a very successful trend, and that's probably why it has continued so long. I like having the ideal self idea that vampires portray. You know, that like you just when you think of a vampire, especially thanks to Hollywood, you think of just this beautiful being, perfect in every way. Just he walks into the room and heads turn, and like that's kind of like the ideal self, right? And I feel like that is what is so appealing to us, and that's why it has been a trend in so much of our culture, is because their physique is just phenomenal. They've got powers, like we were talking about. They're just way above the game, you know. But I also really do adore and love vampires that come back to the very heart of what a vampire is, which is this demonic force, something that comes to hunt us as humans. Like we want to have this appeal to these creatures, you know. Having this beauty almost makes it so we're more like our defenses go down almost. But I think having that brutal and grotesque kind of creature also brings it back to, this is a creature. It is an evil creature. Beware. Do not trust, you know? So I don't know. I like it, but I also like when films, movies, books, TV shows, whenever they just go the alternative route where, you know, it is a vampire, but it's just hideous, and you're just like, ugh. I like them both. Personally, I like them both. If you can spin it in a particular way to make it interesting, then you've done a great job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm in agreement there, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like having the best of both worlds, like in the movie From Dusk Till Dawn, where you had, like, know, the beautiful kind of seductive creatures that then change into the grotesque vampires.
Exactly, yep. And I think also Lost Boys and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, both of them also like they do that really, really well. They have, you know, these beautiful people, and then the next thing you know, they just change, and you're just like, do not want.
Sharp teeth,
Yes.
the ridges on their foreheads.
Yeah, no, thank
Slightly
you.
pig-looking noses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. I am leaving now. Goodbye. So besides the fact that vampires are powerful, these powerful kind of beautiful, seductive creatures, why do you think people and pop culture in general, what do you think people's fascination with vampires are, besides the fact that they're these like beautiful, just kind of seductive human-like creatures?
Maybe it's something that we can try to aspire to be, but without the vampiric powers. I mean, there are many people that are charismatic, for instance, and they can basically convince other people to do stuff that they wouldn't probably normally consider.
That's a good point, yeah. Yeah, going back to, I guess, the idea of the ideal self, that same idea of having, you know, beauty and really great physique and everything, it is kind of an appeal to that ideal self. And, you know, it doesn't hurt that they are also immortal, and depending on the lore, they have certain abilities. So I feel like with those combinations, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you want that? But then also on the flip side, you know, then you have the argument of, well, do you really want to live forever? So I don't know. I think it's per person. What is it that it appeals to you for?
Oh yeah, because everyone has their own unique mindset.
Yeah.
One person could desire to be immortal and not understand the consequences of having an eternal life. Well, someone would not want to desire that and say, well, I want to live my life to the fullest, and whether it ends, it ends.
Well, let me ask you both this. Would the idea of being an immortal vampire be something that would interest you?
Are you asking if I would like to be a vampire? Is this even a question?
Yes, this is a question.
Brandy, get out. Yes.
I mean, hell, why not?
See?
I kind of already have a sleep schedule based around a vampire, so why not?
Oh no.
Yeah, so if you're a night owl, you should automatically want to be a vampire.
Of course.
Yeah,
That is
my-
the most logical.
Yeah. Okay, yes, I know Vampire Toy that just like I probably should have asked you that question, but it's just something that I had to ask. I mean,
I'm giving you a hard time. I'm sorry.
yes. God, you. But I'm not sure just pretty much about the whole immortality thing. I mean, on one hand, it's like, oh man, this would be great. But then on the other hand, it's a pretty lonely existence. You kind of see this in some vampire stories where the vampire just ends up going mad at the very thought of just like, I have to live like these hundreds and thousands of years and just essentially just I'm alone. And if I get close to somebody, they're going to eventually die anyway. And then I'll really be alone. That thought doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the downside of it.
Yeah.
That actually, it's a really good point, and it is something that I really liked how they covered that in the show called True Blood. One of my actual favorite characters only lasted like 2 episodes or something like that. But the idea was he was this really, really ancient vampire, and he had changed one of the main character vampires, and they'd had a history together for a really, really long time. And the episode, sorry if I'm ruining it for anybody, but you might want to skip past it if you want to watch True Blood. Just skip this part. But
Yes.
he ends up deciding that he's going to see the final sunrise, and he's just decided, like, I'm so old, I'm tired of seeing all of, like, he's seen so much, like, violence between humans and vampires that he's just kind of done with it. And so he just decides, I'm out of here. I just want out. So he clocks out, basically. And so I think that's also a really good point to be bringing up as well, this idea of, yeah, it might seem appealing initially, but the tune of your song might change in a couple millennia, it is something that I like seeing stories talk about, especially in the vampiric story narrative.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the older vampire character, but I do remember that episode, and the older vampire character had turned Eric, that big blonde-headed guy.
Yes, the hunky, yes.
The hunky. Yeah, another show is sexy vampires.
Oh. Drooling every episode, not gonna lie.
Oh, jeez.
No, but seriously, I really liked that show too. It really covered lots of very unique things and touched on a lot of questions about vampires. So I did like True Blood personally.
The show was better than the books, I will admit that. The books just pretty much not appeal to me, but we can get to talking about things that we hate whenever we get to that specific question. But let's kind of go way, way back. Okay, so if you can remember, what is the first vampire movie you remember seeing or game that you remember playing? I know that I remember dressing up as a vampire once for Halloween, but I got to think about, like, what was the first vampire-related thing that I watched. So I will pose that question to you. First vampire movie you saw, first vampire game you played. Just either one.
First movie I ever saw, if I can actually remember, I think it was Interview with the Vampire.
Classic.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was my first vampire movie.
Oh, yeah. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Kirsten Dunst, 1994. How old were you in 94? Were you even born yet?
I was 2 years old.
You probably weren't watching it at 2 years old.
No. I was seeing it definitely in my childhood, but it was not 2 years old. I can't remember anything that happened before I was 3, obviously.
And Silver, was that the movie that got you to start liking vampires as supernatural creatures, or did that come later?
Admittedly, no. Watching Blade actually got me into vampires, believe it or not.
Oh.
That's funny because Blade was actually my first vampire movie, I think. I had to think about this a really long time, and I was like, what was that one moment? And I think it was Blade. And I think, like, my parents sat me down because we had all three of them. And I was like, oh, what's this? And my dad's like, you never, we never sat you down to watch this? Okay. So I sat down with him to watch it, and it was love at first sight. Like, ever since that moment, I was interested. I wanted to find out more, so.
And now here you are, a vampire encyclopedia. Yeah.
Yep.
I've been trying to, like, I had to kind of think about this too, and I think I finally, like, got it. Like, since I was an 80s baby, of course, I grew up a lot on 80s horror, and I think that if I can remember correctly, my first vampire movie I saw was the one you see on the title card here, The Lost Boys.
Definitely seen that movie.
Yes, so that was the first one I saw. I just remembered that it was fun. It had its cool, like, vampire moments. It had its creepy vampire moments. It had, 1987. Yes, I was 5 years old. So it came, like, a little bit later. I was, like, a few years older before I think I finally saw that. I think it was maybe about, like, 2 years later. But I just remember just, like, I don't like that Kiefer Sutherland guy. He's a dick. It's pretty much just like that was like the main thing, I guess, that I came out of when I watched that movie. I remember, though, I didn't really like vampires until I actually interviewed with the vampire. So, which is the first vampire movie that Silver saw.
It's just so weird. Just full circle here.
I know, right?
This is cool.
So we got someone saying their first vampire movie was Salem's Lot in 1979.
That one's a good one.
Yeah, based on Stephen King. I forget whether it's a novel. I remember reading it. I don't remember what it was about, though.
There's a lot of vampire movies that I want to watch.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't miss Queen of the Damned, though. Darn.
Yeah, we had watched that, and you missed it, so boo to you. But that's...
I had to go to sleep.
Yeah, who needs sleep? You're a vampire. Yeah. So now thinking about, we talked about our favorite movies. Now let's kind of segue into our favorite characters. So... we love vampires, so this seems like kind of like a moot question, but do we have any favorite vampire characters from, like, movies, shows, games, if you want to segue into talking about that?
Oh, yes, I do.
All right, lay it on me. Lay it on us.
Smiling Jack from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. He's got no tolerance for assholes, but he's a one chill dude, and he's been around a long time. Used to be a pirate, too. Over 300 years old. God damn, I wish he was with us through the entire game.
I remember that character. Of course, I couldn't finish the game because it kept crashing on me. Yeah. Yeah.
It sucks when the game does that.
Yeah. But I watched the YouTube ending, so I still felt vindicated, but kind of cheated in a sense because I didn't feel like finishing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you with that, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good choice. Smiling Jack. Now to VampireToy. Your favorite vampire character.
Oh my god, hands down. Okay. It's kind of it's so hard to pick. Like, my favorite ultimate vampire, but it had to go to Spike, played by James Marsters in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Absolutely love that man.
Spike!
Oh
Spike! Yes!
Yeah, Spike. He was
I don't know if you know this story about his character, but initially Joss Whedon was actually going to kill him off the first season that he appeared.
Mm-hmm.
but he was so popular with the audience that Joss Whedon kind of kept him in. But every day, James Marsters would come to the set. Joss would basically kind of joke with him, well, you're here for this episode, but no guarantees for next episode. And apparently that went on for a while until it was just apparent that Spike was just gonna stay until basically the end of the series. So I'm so glad that he decided to keep Spike. He was literally one of my favorite vampires of all times. Close second, of course, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Of course.
Yeah.
How could I not?
Yeah, you can't like go wrong with the classic.
Oh,
Pretty much
Bela Lugosi.
the granddaddy, just pretty much of all the. I don't think that was the first vampire movie like ever, but it still is pretty old because it was made in 1932. I think the first one was Nosferatu. If I'm Nosferatu. If I'm not
1922.
Yeah.
Huge legal battle for that one too.
Oh boy. Didn't know that.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. The wife of Bram Stoker tried to sue them because of the representation of Nosferatu being so similar to Dracula. I think originally it was going to be Dracula. Don't quote me on that one. But because of the legal battles, they changed it to Nosferatu. And I think they were able to get away with it without any legality. But it was just a huge thing, like back in the day that they were trying to do that. So, yeah, Nosferatu is also quite the classic, kind of funny to watch, but I loved it as well. I like the over-the-top black and white movie acting.
Yep.
That one has it. It's really good.
Yeah, you
That
watch.
is the silent.
Yeah, you
Yes,
watch.
exactly.
Yeah, you watch something like that now, and you just like laugh at it all. But for back then, I'm sure it was probably quite the accomplishment.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Gotta appreciate the classics. 'Cause that's where
Indeed.
all this came from.
Yeah, exactly. Without Bram, so actually without Vlad the Impaler, we wouldn't have the story of Dracula, and without the story of Dracula, then we wouldn't have vampires in popular culture today.
Indeed.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Then my favorite vampire, of course, I'm an Anne Rice girl, so I've kind of had to go with that something from her lore, but Lestat it has to be my number one favorite vampire. And
Yep.
you have to go with Lestat because either whether you see him in Interview with the Vampire, my only thing about Tom Cruise is that I wish he would have done a French accent because Lestat is French, Lestat de Liancourt. But I do appreciate Tom Cruise Interview the Vampire. But my favorite version of Lestat is the one from Queen of the Damned because I felt Stuart Townsend pulled him off just a tad bit better and got his mannerisms down, at least as for how he was described in the books. So.
All right.
No, that was my favorite vampire. Now, what about the asshole vampires? So the jerks. So any kind of favorite jerk character vampires that you two enjoy?
Ooh, I'd say the Master from Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Oh,
series.
that's a good one. Oh, I loved him. I was sad he only lasted one season.
I know.
What is that? What is that? Such
They
potential.
They couldn't beat that guy when it came to villainy. They just couldn't.
Mm-mm.
Sure, they had all kinds of villains, but no, the Master was the best one of them all.
I agree
Is-
completely.
Is in my opinion.
That one's a good one. I'm not sure how I'm going to top that one.
So we could all just steal his answer.
I mean, the Master was really good, and I think even Joss Whedon mentioned that he was kind of sad that he had to throw away such a very strong enemy so early on. Because he was good. I mean, he comes in later too, like little appearances here and there. So the fact that he had still such an influence even throughout the series down the road, I mean, it speaks volumes. I guess my favorite asshole vampire. Oh man, I don't know if I have one. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, Spike is an asshole in his own right.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Good guy.
Yeah. So.
Especially like in Angel as well.
Oh,
which is
I
the
loved him in
separate
Angel.
film.
Quick to the Angel Mobile. Yes.
I was just never a fan of Angel as a character. Sorry.
True.
He was okay.
Yeah.
They could have done him better, but he was better in Bones. The guy that portrayed Angel. He was better in Bones. But anyway, that's going off topic.
Yeah. Yes, this is not a show about finding bones.
He was good. The actor, he was good. I think his name is David Borealis. He did great. I personally have a hard time enjoying the sob story vampire storyline. It's just hard for me to kind of empathize with them because I get it. It's like, oh man, that sucks for you. But I really enjoy the vampire that just kind of accepts the fact that, okay, this has happened to me. I'm going to make some lemonade out of this lemon and, or, make a Bloody Mary cocktail, whatever they,
Yeah,
whatever. You squeeze the humans to make yourself a Bloody Mary, probably literally from. Yeah. But yeah, those are always the more difficult vampires, I think, to become liked by people who are watching. And I think it comes back to that whole ideal self. Like, we feel like, why are you upset when you have literally everything? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of like why I'm going back to Anne Rice again. It's why I couldn't stomach Louis's character in Interview with the Vampire, because it was like, I could sum it up with the very end. Louis, still whining.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
Yes, it's because it's like, all he did was like whine, and I was like, would you just shut up, please? I mean, you're technically the one who made the choice to become a vampire. You could have just like died.
Indeed, and no one likes a whiny vampire.
No.
It's true.
No. Because,
thank you.
Yeah, because it's like what VampireToy said. It's just like, why are you whining? Shut the hell up.
Exactly.
I'm paraphrasing there, but okay. Let's get into, before we talk about our favorite films, I want us to start with the flip side and think about some of the worst vampire films that we have seen. So, whichever one of you wants to start with ranting about the ones that you hate.
Twilight. Fuck Twilight. They are wannabes. They are not vampires. They're fucking wannabes.
I knew you'd start with that one.
Of course, I've unfortunately seen them all. And I don't remember anything from them, thankfully.
Is it because of your sisters?
Yes.
He's like, yes.
It's supposed to be about vampires, but it's really just about some girl's diary love story or some shit like that.
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah. That is pretty accurate. I watched it to make fun of it, and I just died at the part whenever he like rips open his shirt and he's like, "I'm a monster," and he like sparkles.
That is so unnecessary.
It's like
so true.
It's like, keep your shirt on. I don't want to see it.
Just be what you're supposed to be. A monster. You don't need to go ripping your shirt and saying, I'm just gonna beat my chest and cry about it.
Hey, that's a VampireToy.
I actually had a hard time picking. As you know, like, I don't like Twilight personally. However, I always do like to say good things about it because what it tried to do was something different. And it was trying to do something that, we hadn't seen any other vampire attempt do. And it didn't work for me, but it obviously worked for other people. And because of it, we have a lot more people interested in the vampire, idea and the genre, right? So it's like a love-hate relationship for Twilight personally, but I actually had a hard time picking this out because I haven't really come across one that I just hated. I tried to find, I don't know if you remember this, Brandy. Remember how I mentioned this sci-fi original movie with the hand puppets and they were like space alien vampires? I swear, I spent like 2 hours trying to find this fucking movie. I cannot find it. It's been wiped from like the Earth's history. I must have somehow dreamt about it or not have seen it. Like I even tried talking to my dad about it because he was there watching it with me and he couldn't remember this movie. So I'm just like, but that one was the worst. But I can't find it. So you'll just have to trust me that it existed at some point and it was bad. But to give a more accurate or concrete answer, I had a hard time sinking my fangs into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie.
Oh, I have not seen that.
The original movie was it's like kooky. It's a kooky vampire movie. And it was one of the first vampire movies I ever watched, and I just couldn't really get into it personally. Like I watched the whole thing, I was like, okay, this is okay. It has literally, like, if you're comparing the movie and then Joss Whedon's TV show, it kind of jumps off of that original idea, but it kind of gives it a darker, more, more realistic idea with the TV show. With the movie, it was more funny and kind of lighthearted, and I just couldn't get into it personally. It wasn't bad. It's just, it wasn't for me.
Okay.
And then I had a hard time getting into the new Dark Shadows movie. Have you seen that?
Oh, no, I know the one you're talking about, though, the one with Johnny Depp.
With Johnny Depp, yeah. I liked it. I thought it was funny. But again, it was kind of like, I don't know, it was just too kooky. I think when you're dealing with the vampire genre, there's like a certain point that is just too, like, if you're trying to be funny, it takes away from it almost. I don't know if it's just me not liking that particular vampire twist, but those two movies kind of stood out to me as my least favorite. Not that I didn't like them, it's just my least favorite.
Okay, I get ya. It can be done well, like whenever we talk about our favorites, I'll mention one that I feel was done well, but when it comes to the worst vampire film that I've seen, it was one that I was just like, okay, why the hell did I watch this? Dracula 3000.
Oh,
I was
God.
just thinking about that one.
Dracula 3000.
In space.
I was like, what the fuck was this movie? And the concept, it wasn't bad. Like, having a vampire, like, in outer space where there's really no light, and he can't be burned by the sun, and he's just chasing you on board this spaceship. Okay, the concept was cool. It's kind of like gave me vibes almost of Jason X, like, at times, with, like, the whole setting, like, but that costume they had Dracula in. What? I have no idea. And then just the end was just like so weird when that guy was like, okay, like pretty much like we got 12 hours left before the ship explodes. I was like, why aren't you turning the ship around, you idiots? They're like, you got 12 hours. And then the guy was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go screw this girl now, and tosses her over the shoulder, and then the ship explodes. I was like, and that was the entire movie.
Why doesn't your ship have windows? I mean, I know structural weakness and everything, but no.
Yeah.
That would have helped so much.
Oh my God. It's just like, oh God. And then after that movie, I was just like, my brain just was just like, it was always like, dude, just kind of like on this flat line.
I think I lost some brain cells watching that one.
I think so too. I want them back. And
never again.
I almost said Dracula 2000 was my least favorite, but at least at some points it was kind of like, you know, you could laugh at it because it was so bad. You couldn't do that with Dracula 3000.
Yeah.
No way, no how. It was terrible. VampireToy, if you've seen that movie, I'm sorry.
I have actually avoided that movie entirely, so its reputation precedes it.
Okay, if you
It's a do not watch.
yeah.
No.
No. If you ever are like, okay, I kind of want to know what it's about without having to like really watch it, there's a YouTube channel. They're not horror related, but they're called Good Bad Bad Bad. So if you look up Good Bad Bad Bad, Dracula 3000, and then just watch that, at least they'll make it humorous and they'll have already watched it for you, so you don't have to.
That's awesome.
So
I think the only time I might convince myself to do it is if I have just a huge bottle of rum next to me and some Coca-Cola.
One of us can suffer with you if you wish.
We volunteer as tribute.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
That's
That's the only way.
I don't know if being drunk will help you. It's that bad.
You know what? Yeah, I don't think it would. I think it would make it worse.
Oh
Somehow. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not like a movie to where you could just like riff with people and be like, ha ha, this movie's so shitty. It's just like, oh god, this movie is so shitty. When is it going to end?
That's so sad. That always upsets me. Because they put so much work into a movie. It's not just all fun and games, right? It's lots of money, lots of hard work, early mornings, late nights, and then for it to just flop like that, like that hurts, man. It feels bad, man.
It feels bad, man.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I know also one of my guilty pleasure movies is, I don't know if either of you have seen Van Helsing, that movie with Hugh Jackman.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I actually like that movie.
Yeah. To me, it's like,
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I liked it.
I like the Victorian age.
Yeah,
like
they had a very interesting style. Like the stylization of it was unique, and I liked that too.
yeah, almost kind of like at steampunk at certain times with Van Helsing's weapons.
Yeah. I even played the game based off that movie. It wasn't actually terrible. For once. A non-shitty moving tie-in game. Amazing.
Yay!
Yeah, a rarity.
That
Way
is a
back on
rare.
the PS2 age. Oof.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like the.
Oh
Just
no.
reminds me of Underworld. The Underworld game was god awful. That's the worst vampire game I've ever played.
No. Okay, if you want the worst vampire game, Dracula the Last Sanctuary on the PlayStation 1. That's
heard
the
about
worst.
that one.
That is the worst vampire game. Because it just drops you right in. It drops you right in. It's like, solve this puzzle. And you're like, what? like
You give me no direction. You just expect me to solve this puzzle without knowing exactly what the hell I'm doing.
yes,
Really?
that's exactly what it expects you to do, Silver.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And this is back during the days when really you couldn't like look on the internet and find detailed walkthroughs. You had to go to like game FAQs. And so I went to game FAQs. I printed off an entire walkthrough to get through that game.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's just like,
Oh, wow.
I spent money on this game. I'm finishing it. That was back during the day whenever I was like a bit more spiteful at things. And now I'm just like, whatever.
I'm finishing this out of spite, not
Yeah.
because I like you.
Yes, exactly. So, VampireToy, if you ever get curious about that game, don't. Avoid
Just
it.
immediately abandon that idea. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
For the sake of your sanity.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if you come to me and say, hey, Brandy, I'm thinking about going retro and playing Dracula Last Sanctuary, I'm going to be like, do you remember what we talked about on our podcast episode 24?
Just no. Avoid it at all costs.
Yes. Wait, you're not spiteful. No, Dan, I am not spiteful. I am a very beautiful human being. We can get to that topic later. All right, so we've ranted about what we don't like and a little bit just about guilty pleasures. And now let's get into our favorite vampire films, or what we feel like is our favorite. Originally, I did say, if you can, think of a top 5, or I don't know, like if you guys thought of like a top 5 or a top 3. It's just like, so what direction do you want to go with that?
Well, I have I have like 3 on my list for best vampire movies, I suppose.
Okay, we could do top 3 Vampire Toy. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with, Silver. What is your number 3 most favoritist vampire film?
All right, I actually enjoyed the first Underworld, From Dusk Till Dawn, and The Lost Boys. I actually enjoyed those 3 movies more than most vampire movies that I've seen over the times.
Give a little bit of background as into why you enjoyed those 3.
I barely remember much about 2 of the movies, but in Underworld, I really like how it all came to be, like with the ancient vampire being asleep all this time, and then eventually having to be awoken, and he doesn't even know the era that he has been awoken in, and it's too soon, apparently, from what he says. But I really did like the fact that it was a blend of action and like the whole war with the lichens and the vampires as well. I really like that kind of theme. So that's pretty much why Underworld is probably one of my favorite vampire movies.
It's kind of been established too that vampires and werewolves are just like they're mortal enemies. They don't get along for various reasons.
Yep, they are locked in an eternal war, and neither side will win because, well, politics and power gains and all that crap always gets in the way of probably leadership decisions.
Yeah.
Whether if they can cut off the war or not. It really depends on who wants what more. Do you want peace more, or do you want to continue the war? Just remember that your numbers are not infinite. They're finite.
Exactly. And then Vampire Toy, how about your top 3 most favoritist vampire movies?
Yeah, so from bottom to top, I really liked Interview with the Vampire. I actually remember watching it when I was younger, and I liked it a lot when I was younger, and I tried rewatching it recently, actually, as now that I'm older, and I was just watching it, I was like, oh my god, does he just complain throughout the whole movie? But I really liked it. I mean, it's such a good, it's a good way to get your foot in the door and to introduce you to vampires. It's so good. And it definitely helped me when I was younger to really get the ball rolling as well when I was getting into the vampire thing. So I really liked Interview with the Vampire. It was good. I still really like it. I really love the acting and all the different characters in it. Such great actors, big name actors in that movie too. I didn't realize when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I'm like, holy crap, Tom Cruise, just so many very sexy vampires. But a little more than Interview with the Vampire, I like Nosferatu. I actually watched that at an early age. And that's what I really liked with the whole black and white kind of funny kind of thing. But it was so different, and it still is very different than what we see with vampires today. That Nosferatu isn't sexy to me anyway. I don't know if there's someone out there that's like, oh, Nosferatu. I don't know, but I like that he was different. I like that they took the folklore of the past and they melded it into this creature. And it's really, it's been a unique character that people have called back to. And so I really did enjoy it. It's one of my top ones. But number 1, of course, I have to give it to Dracula. Bro, I have to.
Yeah, it's always like, I have to save that number 1 spot for Dracula.
I have to. Yes, Bela Lugosi and his incarnation of Dracula it's such a classic. It is so ingrained in our culture. He was the face of Dracula for many, many years of his acting career. That when you think Dracula, a lot of times you're gonna call up the image of Bela Lugosi. And his acting is phenomenal. His phrases still outlive just all of it. Like, most people quote his quotes and have no idea or have never seen the movie. And it's so good. I really liked it. You get to see all the characters like that, a lot of modern day vampire movies will call on, Van Helsing and Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see these characters when they were first ever incarnated, and it's amazing. I love it. It's one of my favorites. So those are my top 3.
Yeah, my children of the night, what music they make.
Indeed. OG vampire, indeed.
Yeah, and you guys, if you want, can put in your top 3, like, in chat. Top 3, like, vampire movies. I see that Dan has already done so. He says, I don't know what your third one is, but his number 2 is The Lost Boys, and number 1 is From Dusk Till Dawn. All of them are good choices. And when I got to think about just my top 3, I'm a very, like, nostalgic kind of person, so I tend to like, because Hellraiser was on my list whenever we talked about horror movies from the 80s. So now I give my number 3 spot to The Lost Boys, of course. It was the first vampire movie that I saw. I'm very nostalgic, and it's just like, well, if I hadn't seen that, then I really wouldn't know that that much about vampires, or maybe if they even existed. I mean, who knows? I may have found out later. But that's what kind of got me, like, first exposed to the vampire. And then I know people will argue with me from here to Kingdom Come. Other people, like not you two, but other people will probably just be like, why, Brandy? But I really did enjoy Queen of the Damned. That would have to be my number 2. Now, I know people who have read the books are like, well, it's mashed elements of the Vampire Lestat and Queen of the Damned, and the movie's a mess. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, set the books aside. If you just take the movie for what it is, it's a very fun, enjoyable film. And I like Stuart Townsend as Lestat. I thought he nailed the mannerisms perfectly. So that's why my number 2 is Queen of the Damned. And then I gotta go also, like I said, I'm an Anne Rice girl. So it's just like Anne Rice. So my number 1 will be Interview with the Vampire. And to me, Tom Cruise kind of stole the show in that one. But then also Kirsten Dunst did a really good job as the little like vampire Claudia.
She was perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect in that movie.
Yeah, vampire children would be very frightening.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
And she was. She was a terrifying little spitfire. Oh, lordy.
Yes, Dan, I am a fangirl.
I also, Queen of the Damned had a really kick-ass soundtrack. I'm going to just say that right now.
Yes, it is. Jonathan Davis, who's the lead singer of Korn, wrote most of the soundtrack. And then, of course, Stuart Townsend, that was not his voice. That was Jonathan Davis's voice. He was lip-syncing it, but still.
I had a track from Static X called Cold.
I had a
soundtrack. I had a look at that.
It had a lot of good early 2000s, like metal rock music, and it was just really kick-ass. I loved it. I'm glad that you brought that up, VampireToy, because yes, I remember the soundtrack is one.
So good.
Yes. Oh, man. And then, okay, we got Tim saying his favorite vampire movies, top 3. Vampire Hunter D. Okay, I don't think I've seen that one.
It's an anime. It's
I haven't seen that.
Oh.
It's a bit of an older anime. I have seen it because it was another one of those vampire movies my dad owned, just like Blade. And he was like, "You haven't seen this either? Okay, let's go watch this." So a lot of those movies were my dad's influence. Blade was another one. It was the same idea of, oh, you haven't seen this? Let's go watch it. Lost Boys, same thing.
Yeah.
Such good movies, man. I mean,
I saw all the ones I've mentioned on TV.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Man, we just have parents that are just like, hey, watch these movies, like, watch these horror movies, that, like, you're, like, 7 and 8 years old, and it's just, like, and you think, wow, good, like, some people maybe think, wow, good parenting, but I'm just like, thank you, Mom, for exposing me to, like, all this stuff, because I remember also, not vampire-related, I watched The Howling when I was 7, because my stepdad was just like, hey, I rented The Howling, you're gonna watch it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, after my first horror movie, I had nightmares the night after.
Ah.
Good times.
Good times. Okay, and then Tim also said Blade and Blade 2 round out his top 3. Blade 3, what made Blade 3 though is Ryan Reynolds. I will say that he was probably the best part of that movie, and that's the only thing that makes it watchable if it's on TV. If it's on TV,
just didn't have too many scenes though.
I know, which is but if I have nothing else to do and I'm bored and I see it on TV, I watch it. I don't voluntarily be like, hey, Blade 3, woo!
aside from Ryan Reynolds, that movie is not really worth the watch.
I've seen all 3 of them. Is that the one with like the son and he's like ripping open the elevator going, Father? Is that one? Okay, because that one was pretty ridiculous. Okay, I just want to make sure that was the right one. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I was like, oh, this is happening. Oh, no. This is turning into a soap opera with vampires and werewolves, and I'm not sure I'm okay with this.
No. Yeah, Tim, exactly. Let's make a Blade movie that barely has Blade in it. Blade Trinity. That was the direction. Yeah, that was the direction they were going with it. Because, you would figure, if you're going to end the trilogy, at least end it on a high note.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would expect, the first movie is usually really good. The second one's usually kind of meh. But then you expect the third one to, be really good. Not good, and then good, and then... Pfft. Yeah, exactly. Why call it Blade Trinity if it barely has Blade in it? You should just call it Trinity, because that's just really just what it was. That's a dumb name, though.
or Blinity, if you want to go stupid with it.
Yeah, Blinity. Okay, Silver, go home. You're drunk.
I couldn't resist.
Okay, all right. So what I was going to end on is we already talked about earlier in the podcast, so I won't end on it. But it's pretty much vampires are still a pretty big deal in 2019. Do you feel that these are horror creatures that will withstand the test of time and keep going on and on and on? Or do you think they'll eventually fade into obscurity and we'll remember them no more?
Well, considering the very first vampire movie was in 1922, they've lasted for a long time, almost 100 years. So I'd say, it would still continue on. And, well, it really depends on how we go about vampire movies and other vampire stuff related, as well as games and whatnot. But I think they will stand the test of time going forward.
What are your thoughts, VampireToy? Will vampires stand the test of time?
Gosh. I'm currently of the belief that pretty much all of the creatures have their highs and their lows, right? They go through cycles. We suddenly get a huge surge of ghost horror movies, and then the next thing is maybe werewolves, and then the next thing is biblical creatures. Different things start to cycle, and I feel like vampires, they go through those kinds of cycles as well. And I think it's because we get to see different incarnations of them and different twists that people want to give to them. I think as a society, we're not quite done with them. And as humans, we, in almost every culture, have some sort of creature that could be defined as a vampire. And it has been that way for many, 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 many years. I really honestly believe that vampires are so ingrained in our culture and have been for so long that I don't really think they're going to be going anywhere. I think they're going to continue to adapt to what it is our society fears, but then I also believe that they tap into what our society desires as well. It's almost just a double-edged sword with them. And I think that's the appeal for vampires. And I think that appeal will continue to project it forward into the future until we see different forms of vampires, not just sparkly vampires. We're gonna see more vampires. I swear we will. I think it's just, I think vampires are coming back, you know, and I personally see it, you know, with my Twitch handle being vampire. I see more. I think I have that, you know, reticular activating system going for it, the RAS. Just like I see vampire stuff more, and I see it starting to kind of gain more interest in our society once more. So I think it is very soon that we will see yet another surge of interest in vampire stories, to say the least.
Yes, I would definitely agree with you on that. I think like after the whole Twilight thing, I kind of seen the interest die down. Like maybe it was like really hyped and then it's kind of died down a little bit. But I do agree. I'm really like, kind of interested in seeing what the next iteration of vampires like will be, because they're not my super favorite supernatural creature, but I do like them a lot.
I, for one, would like to see something being done, whether it's animated or live action, being done with the, what was it called? The White Wolf universe. Like, you know, Vampire the Masquerade. I would like to see something, I'd like to see something series-wise based on that, because there is so much lore to work with. You could work from the ancient days or even modern times. There's so much to work with. All kinds of different eras, different vampire clans, you name it. It's not just vampires, there's werewolves too. And other supernatural creatures to boot.
Yeah, it's a very wholly involved universe, which I could definitely respect all the manpower and time that was put into creating that. But we won't be getting that right away, Silver, if at all. We are getting a sequel, though.
Oh, yes. And I am so pumped for that. I've been waiting for 15 years.
Oh, everybody has been waiting so long. Thank you. If they're listening, thank you.
Yes.
Paradox Interactive. If you are ever listening, please don't fuck this up for us. Please.
We beg of you.
Just don't.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll do fantastic. They have done amazing thus far.
Yep, give us your all. That's all we ask.
I have one thing to say. Please don't crash 25 times. Just let me at least just be able to get through this.
Aww.
Because I
feel
was
so bad.
I was so, and Silver's like, I'm sorry for recommending you this game if I know it's gonna crash so much. I go, it's not your fault. It's the stupid game's fault. I was mad. Yeah, crashing. Yeah, but that was part of it. It's just like it made it to where I couldn't even really fully enjoy the end of the game, which really made me mad because I was excited to play it. But you can only take so many crashes, man.
Yeah, it was a bit buggy. Yeah.
Even with the patch I downloaded, it was still bad.
Yeah, I should have linked you to the plus patch. I have legitimately had no issues whatsoever with crashes. So I think it might be the fact that the GOG version uses the basic patch and not the plus patch that causes so many issues. But there's only one way to find out if that's true or not. Install it.
Yeah, you'll have to point me in the direction of that plus patch, and then it'll be off stream, but I'll do another playthrough as a Malkavian or something.
Yeah.
So
I shall do so.
Alrighty. I think that is actually a great place to end. We've talked about a lot of our favorite vampire things. We talked a lot about our favorite movies, why we like vampires so much. And I think it was a really good podcast. And we got to talk to chat too about what they liked and their favorite vampire films. And wow, it was just I really had a good time, you two. So thank you to VampireToy, and thank you to Silver for waking up early or staying up late, whatever it is you had to do. Thank you two for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
It was my pleasure.
Just reminds me of that accent just reminds me of that story in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I am the Viper. I wish to wash and wipe the windows.
I remember you mentioning that a few streams ago.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Alrighty, so to everybody out there, remember the next stream, if you're part of the Twitch community, the next stream will be on Friday at 7 p.m. Central Time. What am I going to do? I don't know. We'll figure it out whenever we get there. Yes. But thank you all for coming out. I really do appreciate you all taking the time to listen in. And as always, stay terrific, everybody. And bye-bye now.
Bye.
Goodbye.